carlislefirm.com. And by carcomplaints.com, providing information about squeaks, bangs, flashing lights, odd smells, and other vehicle complaints. Online at carcomplaints.com. It's 8 o'clock. Good morning. This is Northern Light for Monday, July 8th. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Catherine Wheeler. The state has cleared the way to approve a utility-scale solar project in Canton. More details ahead.
Also, tick-borne illnesses have increased in the Northeast in the last 2 decades.
One main factor that is contributing to the expansion of the ticks is this habitat fragmentation, suburbanization, which removes some of the natural biodiversity.
Also on the show, a statue of Harriet Tubman was just installed in Lake Placid. John Brown Farm is hosting a series of events this year to honor Tubman.
My journey as a person of culture coming up here has been led by John's spirit, as well as Harriet and those of the people of Timbuktu and the Raiders. So it just feels like those who called me here have finally all arrived for the reunion. Yeah.
And Betsy Kepes joins us with a review of a new adventure-filled novel that's written to draw in reluctant middle-grade readers. All that's coming up on Northern Light. Stick with us. Support for Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio comes from Seagull Festival in Schroon Lake, presenting live performances of Mozart's opera Don Giovanni, July 17th through the 20th. Details and tickets at seagullfestival.org. And by Apothecary Chocolates, making gourmet chocolates by hand from all natural herbs, botanicals, and tree syrups. apothecarychocolates.com. This is Northern Light. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Catherine Wheeler. State police charged 7 current and former U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers in a grand larceny scheme last week. Police say the officers misappropriated federal government accounts and union funds while executive board members of the National Treasury Employees Union Chapter 138 in Champlain. They allegedly double-billed the 2 organizations for official travel and took cash advances. 6 of the officers were charged with felony grand larceny. The 7th faces a misdemeanor larceny charge. All were released on their own recognizance. The Clinton County District Attorney's Office is prosecuting the case.
A proposed large-scale commercial solar development in Canton is nearing final approval from the state. St. Lawrence Valley reporter Catherine Wheeler has more.
New York State's Office of Renewable Energy Siting says EDF Renewables needs to make a few changes to its draft permit, but the state says there's no need for further hearings on the Rich Road solar project. EDF is proposing to build a 240-megawatt commercial solar project in Canton, just southwest of the village on Route 11. It would be the single largest solar development in St. Lawrence County so far. Canton's solar attorney Bill Buchan says ORES's update wasn't unexpected.
We had hoped that there would be some accommodations to the issues that we raised. For example, the battery safety issues. All of those issues were deemed to be insignificant from the ORES standpoint. So none of the things that we asked to be heard will go any further.
The proposed battery storage site on the development is one of a few environmental and safety concerns that some residents and local governments raised. That's after 3 battery storage sites in New York caught on fire last year. They say if there was an accident, it could put a strain on already limited emergency services in the area. But others say the development will help in the pursuit of more renewable energy to fight against climate change and bring in some revenue to the community. Buchan says outside of the state's permitting process, there are still a few things EDF and the town have to agree upon, like a road use agreement.
There is also a payment in lieu of taxes agreement that's been proposed through the St. Lawrence County IDA and a host community benefit agreement. which is between the town and EDF. Those issues will all remain under discussion by the parties.
The state will continue to process the permit. It's expected to be approved. Catherine Wheeler, North Country Public Radio.
The State Department of Environmental Conservation says a North Lawrence dairy plant violated water quality standards. The agency says it found North Country Dairy's permitted discharge is the primary contributor to the growth of sewage fungus in the Deer River. The DEC cited the plant last week and continues to monitor it for compliance with regulations. In a statement issued to WWNY-TV, North Country Dairy said it's working with the DEC and conducting its own internal review of operations. The company says it'll keep the public updated as things progress.
A statue of Harriet Tubman was installed in Lake Placid last week. Tubman helped dozens of Black people escape slavery. During her decades of work along the Underground Railroad, she met fellow abolitionist John Brown, and the two became friends. Brown led the raid on Harper's Ferry, where he was captured and later executed. Meanwhile, Harriet Tubman continued her activism, not only focusing on abolishing slavery, but also promoting a woman's right to vote and supporting people with disabilities. Tubman settled in the Finger Lakes in western New York, where she founded a home for people who experienced paralysis, epilepsy, and impaired vision.
Tubman's statue, called the Beacon of Hope, was designed by Wesley Wofford and is on display from now until the end of September at John Brown Farm in Lake Placid. Emily Russell was there as the statue was unloaded and spoke with Shondell Frazier about Tubman's legacy and what programs she's helping organize at the farm this summer to honor Tubman.
The programs are designed to illuminate some of the skills that Harriet Tubman would have used throughout her long career as a freedom seeker, freedom fighter, and a seeker of justice. So we have some themes such as her wayfinding skills, utilizing waterways, the stars, naturalism skills, knowing herbalism, so that on the run, in case anything needed to come up or if you needed to forage, she would have had those skills. Then we had her spirituality, her deep faith, which also gave her the courage to launch out on her own. Ultimately, having the statue here is really important because she and John Brown had great respect for each other. And so he considered her a general. And of course, he was Captain John Brown, so of equal rank, which is also very symbolic. And so I love the idea of them being in conversation on his property. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what is it like? I mean, we're watching right now as the statue is going in on this farm in this beautiful setting. What is it like just to kind of see this all take place?
It's really moving. My journey as a person of culture coming up here has been led by John's spirit as well as Harriet and those of the people of Timbuktu and the Raiders. So it just feels like those who called me here have finally all arrived for the reunion. Yeah. It's really moving to me to just see her here. And then she's facing his statue as well. She was actually supposed to be on the raid with John Brown. And it's not clear. We don't have any documentation or sources to say why she didn't go. I think I've seen somewhere that maybe she was sick.
Right. I was just reading that, actually, that she was sick during his hanging.
That's the other theme. So she was a person who lived with disability.
Right.
Yeah. So we don't know if there was the sickness that we also saw was tied to her visions that helped her know when to go and when not to go.
Right. And that was all connected to an injury she got when she was just a teenager, right? I mean, and I was just reading about this. I didn't know this backstory of hers. Could you just say more about that and kind of how it factored into her activism throughout her life?
You know, I wish I had more information about that. I'm actually a person who lives with disability, and I always forget that she would have been going through the woods at night, being chased with people dependent on her and afraid with not enough supplies and at risk of having a seizure at any given moment, you know. She was a tremendous person. So for her, I know she had the home for the aged and the disabled. So I know that was a goal that, I don't know if it was fully realized as she was waiting for her pension for most of her later life.
Yeah, it was. I mean, she did create that home, and that's where she ultimately died at 91 years old, which is just incredible.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Talk about defying the odds of the time, right? On the way over, I was just thinking, if John hadn't been, involved in his, just deep fight for us, he probably would have lived to be the same age, given how strong and healthy he was in the 1800s, right? Yeah.
That was Shondell Frazier speaking with Emily Russell at John Brown Farm. Frazier and others unveiled the statue of Harriet Tubman at the farm on Friday. It's on display there until the end of September. This is NCPR. listening to Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio. It's 8:10. Good morning. I'm Catherine Wheeler.
And I'm Monica Sandreski. Coming up, a new novel takes middle grade readers on a chase through the Adirondacks. A review of Hum by William David Thomas in a few minutes here on Northern Light, which is supported by the Village Mercantile in Saranac Lake. Established in 2011 with a mission of community-fueled solutions with products for home, camp, and gift-giving, villagemerc.com, anything but general. And by the Adirondack Experience, the museum on Blue Mountain Lake, hosting their annual Mushroom Mania Festival, Saturday, August 24th, with workshops, nature walks, and more. Details at the adkx.org. Music now by Dan Bergeron out of Ballston Spa.
Over the last 20 years, ticks and the diseases they carry, like Lyme disease, have spread rapidly in the northeastern states, including New York and next door in Vermont. Scientists say human-caused climate change is one reason why, but it's not the only thing driving their growth. Vermont Public's Abigail Giles has this story.
Oh, there's one. Yeah. It's a warm, sunny day in April, and Patty Casey and her colleague, Eliza Doncaster, are suited up like they're ready to handle something toxic in a laboratory. But we're not in a lab. We're in a beautiful field in Brownsville, Vermont.
So we have this cool 1 meter square white flag, and we're either dragging it or flagging it through vegetation looking for ticks.
Patty and Eliza are with the Vermont Agency of Agriculture's tick surveillance team. While most people avoid ticks, they visit every town in Vermont in the spring and fall every 5 years to find them. Lots of them. Hence the hazmat-esque suits.
We're starting to accumulate data over time so that we can see places where ticks are moving into or perhaps declining. Are they moving into higher elevations? Areas where there's more like suburban, development.
When they find one, they pick it up with tweezers and drop it into a little vial of alcohol.
Free drink.
This vial of ticks will go back to the state laboratory to get tested for diseases. Black-legged ticks, also called deer ticks, carry the bacteria that causes Lyme disease. But they also carry a bunch of other bacteria, viruses, and parasites that cause other illnesses. Natalie Quitt is with the Vermont Department of Health.
And those diseases are, in order of most common to least common, are Lyme disease, anaplasmosis, babesiosis, Borrelia miyamotoi disease, and lastly, Powassan virus.
When Lyme was first reported in Vermont a little more than 20 years ago, it was pretty rare. But now the state sees more than 1,000 new cases every year. The Centers for Disease Control considers Vermont a high-incidence state for Lyme, anaplasmosis, and babesiosis. And now people are catching Lyme year-round.
So what we are seeing, like other states with these tick-borne illnesses nationally, is an upward trend.
It's a problem Quitt and the health department are very worried about. And they're not alone.
There is evidence for the northward expansion of these tick-borne illnesses and the ticks themselves being contributed to by climate change. I would say that's fairly strong evidence.
That's Rick Ostfeld with the nonprofit Carey Institute of Ecosystem Studies in Millbrook, New York. He's been doing some of the longest-running surveillance of tick populations in the Northeast. Because of human-caused climate change, Vermont now sees about a week more freeze-free days than it did in the 1970s. And the growing season is getting longer every decade. Ostfeld says that makes it easier for black-legged ticks to find hosts to feed on at critical stages of their life cycle. But humans are also driving the spread of ticks in other ways.
One main factor that is contributing to the expansion of the ticks is this habitat fragmentation, destruction, suburbanization, which removes some of the natural biodiversity that we have in the animal communities. So some of the predators disappear.
Black-legged ticks aren't choosy and will happily feed on most mammals. But small rodents like chipmunks or white-footed mice or shrews are particularly good hosts for them. And they're also the animals that infect the ticks with pathogens, like the one that causes Lyme. When we allow suburban sprawl to break up big chunks of forests, predators like bobcats, foxes, weasels, and raptors leave, and other animals too. And that creates room for rodents to thrive.
We are inadvertently filtering out the protective species and allowing in the dangerous species when we fragment the landscape and erode habitat quality.
Ostfeld says scientists think this is part of why we're seeing tick-borne illnesses spread radially, not just northwards. And while forest fragmentation and climate change are two big factors, he says researchers know there are still drivers they don't understand. But he says there's good news. Climate change and sprawl are things that humans can address through public policy. Natalie Quitt with the Vermont Department of Health says it's critical that Vermonters, especially those who work outside, take steps to protect themselves and find ticks early. She says it's the best tool we have.
I think a simple way to remember it is protect, check, remove, watch.
That's protect yourself by avoiding areas where ticks live and wearing protective clothing and EPA-approved insect repellents. Treat your pets for ticks seasonally. Check yourself and your clothes every time you spend time outdoors. And consider putting your clothing in the dryer on high for 10 minutes when you come in from the woods. Taking a shower soon after being outdoors is another proven way to reduce your risk of getting sick. Lastly, Quitt says,
and then if you do have an attached tick, remove promptly.
She recommends using fine-tipped tweezers. Then monitor yourself for signs and symptoms of illness or rash for 30 days.
That was Abigail Giles from Vermont Public reporting.
The community theater in Saranac Lake broke ground last week at its new location. The Pendragon Theater will be located right downtown across the street from Nori's Cafe. State and local officials, including Assemblyman Billy Jones, dug shovels in the ground at the new site last Tuesday. The Pendragon has been hosting theater productions for more than 4 decades in Saranac Lake. It's raised more than $500,000 and received $4.5 million in state grants from both the DRI initiative and the Restore New York Communities initiative. Construction of the new theater is expected to take 2 years, with the Pendragon opening its doors for the summer 2026 season.
3 local anglers are competing in the Major League Fishing competition on Lake Champlain this weekend. Brett Carnwright and Ryan Lattenville are both from Plattsburgh, and Alec Morrison is from the town of Peru. Major League Fishing's Toyota Series showcases the top bass fishing pros from the Northeast. They're competing for a $100,000 prize and a Phoenix 518 Pro boat with a 115 horsepower outboard motor. Launch time is at 6 a.m. this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday mornings at the Plattsburgh City Marina. Weigh-ins are at 2 o'clock daily, also at the marina. All are welcome to come out and cheer on the anglers.
And in North Country baseball, the North Country Thunderbirds beat the Saranac Surge in back-to-back games this weekend, and the Malone Border Hounds beat the Tupper Lake River Pigs 9-8. All 4 teams play again tomorrow. This is NCPR. You're listening to Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio. Good morning. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Catherine Wheeler. In just a minute, book reviewer Betsy Kepes joins us to talk about a new novel for reluctant readers. After that, Bird Note is coming up at 8:42. But first, Monica has a look at the weather.
This is so exciting. My first time with a coast.
First time.
Catherine, it's so good to have you here today. This is so fun. At last check, it was 62 degrees in Indian Lake, 72 in Glens Falls already, and in Plattsburgh too. 58 degrees in Tupper Lake, 67 in Messina, and 67 degrees in Chameau right now. We can expect mostly sunny skies in the forecast today, with temperatures rising to the lower 80s in the high peaks and into the upper 80s elsewhere. Overnight tonight, mostly clear skies with lows around 70 degrees, and tomorrow highs in the 80s with a chance of rain showers starting and likely to continue throughout the week with isolated storms on Wednesday and Thursday too. Temperatures pretty much staying around 80 degrees for the rest of the week. An exciting new novel for middle school readers features a boy and a llama who make a desperate winter trek across the Adirondacks. Our book reviewer Betsy Kepes joins us to talk about Hum by William David Thomas. Good morning, Betsy.
Good morning, Monica.
Well, so tell us a bit about this book. What's Hum about?
Well, it's set in Newcomb, a place that 11-year-old Alan couldn't even find on a map. Alan lives in Syracuse with his grandmother until she decides to relocate them to her house in the Adirondacks.
Does Alan want to go?
He's ambivalent. He's not a happy kid. He has a recurring nightmare with explosions and screaming, and he hasn't made many friends in his Syracuse school.
Yikes. Well, when he gets to Newcomb, does Alan like living there?
Well, he's shocked to discover that the Newcomb school is so small that 3rd through 5th graders share the same classroom. But he makes friends on his first day of school. Unfortunately, though, there's a terrible high school bully, a boy who mocks Alan because he hums.
He hums?
Yeah, that's weird, right?
Yeah, a little bit. But why would he do that?
Well,
that seems like it's going to make things worse.
It does. This novel was written to have excitement on every page. It's what's called a high-low book by reading teachers.
High-low. What does that mean?
High-low books are meant for reluctant middle school readers. They have high interest plots with a low reading level. Hum has chapters that are never longer than a couple of pages and lots of action.
Well, wait, isn't high action plus a not that difficult reading level kind of one of the definitions of a children's book?
You'd think so. Not always, though.
Right.
Did you ever read Anne of Green Gables or Wind in the Willows? They are hundreds of pages long with complicated sentence structures. But you're right, though. Newer books for middle school kids tend to be short with lots of action and excitement. Children's book publishers now have to deal with and compete with screen time to get kids' attention.
Right. That makes sense. Well, do you have an excerpt from Hum you could read for us?
Sure. Here's a scene on the school bus with Alan and the high school bully, Lenny Busendorf. Lenny crowded into the seat. He put a big hand on Alan's shoulder and squeezed. Even through his thick ski jacket, it hurt. It really hurt. Lenny leaned over and hissed, "I remember you from the beach, newbie. You got me in trouble with that carrot-headed kid's parents." The pressure on Alan's shoulder increased. He winced and gritted his teeth. "You were humming then. I want to hear you hum now." Humming sounds rose up inside Alan's head, sounds that seemed to tell him what to do. Alan turned his head, looked into Lenny's eyes, and then Alan spat a mouthful of saliva right into Lenny's face. The big kid stood up, roaring like an angry bear, wiping his coat sleeve across his face. And then his fists came pounding down.
Oh, that is high action. Oh, goodness. Spitting on the bully just seems like not the right move.
Oh, I know. You're asking for more, right? But later in the book, readers find out that Alan has a strong connection to llamas, and we all know that llamas like to spit.
Yeah.
The book departs from reality when Alan is at the Saranac Lake Winter Carnival. He sees llamas at a traveling petting zoo, and he's irresistibly drawn to a llama named Yana. He realizes he can understand and speak llama language.
I do love books with talking animals. So is this is it a fantasy novel?
Well, it wasn't until that point. Everything else is realistic. But it turns out that llamas have something to do with the recurring nightmare and the death of Alan's parents. More excitement happens when Alan steals Yana from the zoo. They flee from their pursuers to the high peaks, trying to get back to Newcomb. So if you take the paper cover off this book, Monica, the inside has a map of their route. I thought it was really cool because I know those trails.
Right. Well, and you've got it right here. I mean, this is such a cool thing. Can you describe what we're seeing here?
So it's actually, I think, the actual topo map, and then in red, there's a line of the route that Alan and Yana take across the mountains, starting at Heart Lake and ending up close to Newcomb.
Yeah, all the way up here.
Right through the high peaks.
Yes, but you can see Mount Colden and Avalanche Lake, Mount Marshall, Iroquois Peak.
I have to say, I've never read a book before where you take the cover off and there's a map of the Adirondacks.
Right. And a topographical one, too.
Yeah.
Yes. And, of course, there's the llama, Yana, too.
Llama the Yana. Yana the llama, blah, blah. Yes.
Well, so does anyone help Alan along his journey?
He's alone in the woods with Yana, but he has many friends who go out searching for him. It is, of course, very cold and snowy, a dangerous time to be in the wild. And I must say, the fictional community of Newcomb gets a gold star for being kind, welcoming, and ready to help a lonely 11-year-old.
Well, so Betsy, I know that you're not exactly a reluctant middle school reader, but it sounds like you really enjoyed this book.
I did. I liked the local setting, the kind characters, the fast action, even the magic of the llama language. The Adirondacks help heal Alan, as they have for so many people.
Betsy, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your thoughts.
My pleasure, Monica.
Betsy Kepes joins us every month with a review of a new book with a North Country connection.
You're listening to Northern Light right here on North Country Public Radio. It's just about 8:25, so glad you could join us this morning. So many events, too, going on throughout the community, including coming up this Thursday. North Country Community College is offering a series of presentations at their Ticonderoga campus this month. It's their North Country Live series. And this Thursday's conversation is with Tom McGrath. It's called Dead Trees Will Show You the Way, Echoes from the Underground Railroad. That's coming up this Thursday evening at 7 o'clock at North Country Community College's Ticonderoga campus.
And calling all wrestling fans, the Clash at Clayton is coming on Saturday, July 13th. The Rochester Area Wrestling League Extreme Wrestling Force is bringing in wrestlers from the WWE and guys from upstate New York for a show at the Ciro Arena. That's Saturday, July 13th in Clayton, and you can find them on Facebook at Extreme Wrestling Force.
And it's not too late, actually, to get tickets for the WWE's Monday Night Raw tonight at 7:30 in Canada, outside of Ottawa, where I will be headed
I
this
love
evening.
that you keep track of all of this.
So many. yes, any wrestling event. Also, don't forget to check out the upcoming exhibit on display at the Thousand Islands Arts Center. It features the landscape paintings of Tasmanian artist Nathaniel Hiller. He paints these lush, storybook-like acrylic pieces of life along the Derwent River in Australia. The exhibition will open on July 17th and run through August 17th. You can find out more from the Thousand Islands Arts Center.
And the Adirondack Two-Step is inviting you to join them for a contra dance on Wednesday, July 17th in the town of Jay in Essex County. No experience necessary and a suggested donation of $10. It's put on by the Jay Entertainment and Music Society, and that's the Adirondack Two-Step on Wednesday, July 17th from 7 to 9 at the Amos and Julia Ward Theater in Jay.
That is it for the show for the day. Morning Edition continues in just a minute. Coming up in about 15 minutes on the show, there's above average wildfire potential for the rest of the summer and into the fall for vast swaths of the American West. We'll get more on the National Fire Forecast coming up at 8:45 right here on NCPR.
I'm Catherine Wheeler.
And I'm Monica Sandreski. Be well.